Hey there, welcome to another deep dive into the art of living with purpose. I'm thrilled you're joining me today because we're about to unpack something that could shift how you navigate life and how the world perceives you. Here's the deal, the sharpest minds out there have a hidden edge, and it's not about flexing their knowledge or rattling off facts like a walking encyclopedia. Their real strength lies in mastering the art of silence, knowing when to hold back and let their actions speak louder than any witty remark ever could. I've spent over a decade studying human behavior, drawing from the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy and countless hours of people watching over coffee, maybe one too many lattes. The most insightful men I've encountered share a common trait. They don't squander words, they don't rush to fill quiet moments, and they steer clear of phrases that undermine their integrity. So today we're exploring 7 things wise men avoid saying. Not because they're perfect, but because they've learned, often through hard-won lessons, that these words lead to dead ends. Stick with me, hit that subscribe button, and let's grow wiser together. 1. I already know that. This phrase sneaks out more than we'd care to admit. I already know that sounds confident, maybe even self-assured, but it betrays something less impressive, a mind that's closed off to new possibilities. A truly wise man knows better. The second you assume you've got it all figured out, you've barricaded yourself from growth. I learned this the tough way years back, working under a mentor whose quiet confidence spoke volumes. He'd seen it all, yet he carried himself with humility. One day he started explaining a process I'd handled countless times. Without thinking, I blurted, "Yeah, I know that already." He didn't flinch, just gave me a steady look and moved on. Later, it hit me. I hadn't just cut him off. I'd cheated myself out of his perspective, forged through years of experience I hadn't yet lived. When we say I already know that, we're not just dismissing others, we're signaling arrogance cloaked as competence. Stoicism cuts through this like a blade. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, "You can't learn if you think you already know everything." Ego tricks us into thinking we're on solid ground when we're teetering on pride. Knowledge isn't a prize you collect, it's a flowing stream, always shifting. I once saw a master electrician listen patiently as a young apprentice explained a wiring technique he'd likely perfected decades earlier. He nodded, asked questions, even thanked the kid. Later, I asked why he didn't just say he knew it all. His response? "You can learn something new even from the way someone else sees the familiar. That's wisdom, quiet, unassuming and open." So, next time you're tempted to say "I've heard this before," pause, listen. You might catch a fresh angle, a subtle insight. Even if you don't, you're practicing humility, earning respect and honing the kind of self-mastery Stoics prized. That's the intelligence that endures. 2. That's impossible. A few years ago I worked with a guy named David, a brilliant manager who seemed to carry the weight of the world without breaking a sweat. But he had a habit. Whenever a bold idea came up, whether it was rethinking a strategy or tackling a tough client, he'd say, "That's impossible." At first it felt grounded, like he was keeping us realistic. But over time I realized he wasn't describing the situation. He was revealing his own limits, his fear of failure dressed up as pragmatism. The Stoics nailed this mindset. Seneca said we suffer more in our minds than in reality, and David was living proof. His impossible wasn't about facts. It was about his discomfort with the unknown, his reluctance to risk being wrong. Stoic philosophy challenges this self-imposed cage. It's not the obstacle that stops us, it's how we view it. I saw this play out later in a project with a shoestring budget and a rookie team. Everything screamed impossible, but instead of shutting down, I asked, "What's one step I can take today?" That project became a standout success, not because we defied logic, but because we kept moving, one small action at a time. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not external events." When a man says that's impossible, he's surrendering before the battle starts. Wise men see the unfamiliar not as a wall, but as a call to act. They know courage isn't blind optimism, it's disciplined persistence, taking the next step even when the path isn't clear. That's how you turn impossible into "I'll find a way." 3. That's not my fault. Few phrases are as tempting, or as destructive, as "that's not my fault." When things go south, it feels natural to point the finger elsewhere. A teammate dropped the ball, the market tanked, the client was unreasonable. But every time we dodge responsibility, we surrender our power to shape the outcome. Wise men get this. They know responsibility isn't about taking blame. It's about claiming influence. I saw this with a colleague, Alex, who lost a key account. He had a laundry list of reasons it wasn't his fault. The client was picky, the team missed deadlines. All partly true, but by focusing on what wasn't his fault, he missed the chance to learn and grow. He stayed stuck, repeating the same errors, waiting for others to fix things. The Stoics were clear: focus on what you control and let go of the rest. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. When we say that's not my fault, we hand the reins to someone else, waiting for them to make it right. But when we own even a small piece of the problem, maybe I could have communicated better or prepared more, we step back into the driver's seat. I've found that admitting my role, however minor, shifts the dynamic. It builds trust, clarity, and strength. Blame is easy, responsibility is hard. But that's where growth lives. Wise men don't dodge fault. They seek solutions, asking, what can I do better next time? That's how you lead, not by pointing fingers, but by forging a path forward. 4. I don't need any help. There's a dangerous myth we've all been fed. The idea that real strength means going it alone. I don't need any help sounds rugged, independent, even admirable. But too often, it's pride in disguise, isolating us and eroding the resilience we think we're protecting. I was struck by this when reading about Ulysses S. Grant during the Civil War. History often paints him as a lone titan, but Grant leaned heavily on his generals, valued their counsel, and sought perspectives that challenged his own. He wasn't weak. He was wise enough to know no one has all the answers. Marcus Aurelius echoed this in Meditations, listing the mentors and friends who shaped him, even as Rome's emperor. If the most powerful man in the world leaned on others, why do we resist? I've been there, thinking I had to carry every burden solo: work, family, life's pressures. It wore me down until I finally confided in a friend. That small act of vulnerability didn't weaken me, it gave me clarity and strength. The Stoics remind us we're built for connection. Epictetus said, no man is an island. We thrive through mutual support. Refusing help doesn't make you strong, it cuts you off from the collective wisdom around you. True courage lies in admitting you need a hand. Wise men know that strength isn't standing alone, it's knowing when to reach out. 5. I'm too old for that. Few lies are as insidious as I'm too old for that. It masquerades as realism, but it's a surrender, a belief that your best days are behind you. Wise men reject this. Take Colonel Sanders, who at 65 turned a recipe and a dream into KFC, building an empire when most would have retired. He didn't let age define him, he let purpose drive him. The Stoics saw age as irrelevant to the soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote that our duty is to live fully until the end, not to shrink from life. I've seen men in their 70s pivot careers, mentor others, or start new ventures. What sets them apart isn't luck, it's mindset. Saying I'm too old closes doors, asking what can I do now opens them. Age doesn't limit purpose, it deepens it, offering experience and perspective. Stoicism teaches that as long as you're breathing, you're not done. Wise men don't retire from growth, they embrace it, knowing every moment is a chance to contribute. So, ditch the excuse. Your next chapter is waiting. 6. I'll do it later. I'll do it later is a siren song, lulling us into inaction with the false promise of time. It feels reasonable, but it's a thief, burying our intentions in a graveyard of some days. Wise men know time isn't guaranteed. I knew a man, James, who kept putting off time with his kids, telling himself he'd be present later when work slowed down. Then life intervened. His kids grew up and later never came. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to act with urgency, writing, "You could leave life right now. Let that guide your choices." Stoicism demands we live now, not tomorrow. I've delayed tough conversations or projects, thinking I'd have time, only to find regret waiting. But when I act, making the call, starting the task, clarity replaces hesitation. Wise men don't wait for perfect moments, they seize the present. Opportunity doesn't linger, it fades while we procrastinate. Act today, because later's a promise life doesn't always keep. 7. That's just how I am. The phrase, "and that's just how I am," sounds like self-acceptance, but it's a trap, a refusal to evolve. Wise men know we're not fixed, we're shaped by our choices. I've seen men cling to this excuse. One snaps in anger and shrugs, "That's me." Another avoids vulnerability, claiming it's his nature. These aren't truths, they're resistance to change. The Stoics rejected this. Epictetus said, "Our judgments, not our nature, limit us." Change is hard. It demands honesty and discomfort, but it's the path to mastery. I've caught myself hiding behind "that's just me," but growth comes from challenging that story. Am I this way because it's who I am, or because it's easier than changing? Wise men choose the harder road, seeing themselves as works in progress. Stoicism teaches that life is change. To resist it is to stagnate. Embrace the work of becoming better, not because you're flawed, but because you're capable of more. That's wisdom. If any of these hit home, you're not alone. I've stumbled over every one of these phrases myself. The beauty is, wise men aren't perfect. They're the ones who reflect, learn, and keep moving forward. Which of these resonates with you? Maybe it's time to let go of "I'll do it later" or rethink "that's just how I am." Whatever it is, take the next step. Wisdom isn't about flawlessness. It's about staying open, humble, and intentional. If this sparks something, share it with someone who'd vibe with it. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Let's keep growing one choice at a time. See you next video.